Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My purpose today is to update you and then answer any questions that you might have. Just thinking about the shenanigans that went on a few minutes ago outside, I just want to make one thing clear. We, as River Oak, will meet anyone by invitation. We are here today, I'm here today by express invitation of Brian and Bo, and glad to be here. In July, I'm meeting with the Why Not Manston group. I've met with them once before. In the past, we've met with and briefed both SUMA and indeed the original SMA team. Our position is, if you want to meet us and you want to ask us questions for a sensible discussion, we will always be available. 3 weeks ago, we met and briefed the Conservative group on Thanet District Council by invitation. We would meet and brief other groups on Thanet District Council if they so invited us. And the good news is that as the result of the county council elections last week, it looks now as though, as a result of an invitation from the newly elected Conservative member for Ramsgate, that we shall get the opportunity to meet county councillors up at County Hall. And again, to make the point, that's an invitation from Councillor Messenger, a newly elected Conservative candidate. We would accept a similar invitation from a Labour member or a Liberal Democrat member, or indeed from a UKIP member if they had any. What I wanted to do next was to give you a feel for where we are in relation to current workload, because I know there are times, Bo and I speak quite often, and there are times when there's a frustration, that there's a sense that people don't know what's going on. So I'm just trying to give you a feel for what's happened in the last, or what will happen in the next few days. On Friday, just past, we had a lengthy telephone conference with the Planning Inspectorate. It's part of a regular series of either meetings or telephone conferences. Participants in that were the River Oak Home team, of course, plus our legal people, the company that's managing the statutory consultations, about which more in a minute, and our environmental people. And that was to talk about the timetable and programme for the upcoming statutory consultations, and also to talk about how we resolve the difficulties in relation to site access. A business-like meeting which will be reflected in minutes which will be published on the Planning Inspectorate's website in the next couple of weeks. And that's a fairly normal event for us. It's an event we plan for, we have an agenda, and we discuss things carefully. The object being to make sure that whatever we do complies with the process that the DCO procedure requires of us. Tomorrow we have a meeting with the Civil Aviation Authority, and at that meeting we will be accompanied by Osprey, who are our airspace experts, and by Amick Foster-Wheeler, who are our environmental experts, and that's to discuss the important issue of the air traffic zone above Manston and of the renewal of the licence. In some of the talk about new investors coming in and so on, it's often overlooked that there is no licence, there is no air traffic zone. All of those negotiations have to take place. They are not cheap, they are not quick, and they will involve further environmental work and further consultations. We've begun that process, and that's what tomorrow's meeting is about. On Tuesday, we have a meeting with the Environment Agency at Westmoreland, and that's to discuss where we are with the environmental report on Manston, the issue of the aquifer, the drainage, the wildlife, all those issues, and also potentially in relation to other hazards surrounding a fuel farm operation. All these things have to be carefully worked out in advance and discussed. And the outcome of that meeting will be reflected eventually in what we put in the DCO application, because we need to know that everything we do is compliant and meets with all the environmental and safety requirements that there are. On Wednesday, we have a board meeting, and our three Swiss colleagues will be flying in to join us. That meeting is to review where we've got to, how much we've spent, where we want to get to, what the timetable is, and also beginning to look at what should happen in 2018 and beyond. Because as we get closer to this happening, we have to start thinking about active marketing and about partnering with some of the people who've responded so favourably to us. We're in an interesting time in the area of world cargo, and it's not really just because of Brexit, it's actually because of what is happening to the way in which commodities are bought and sold, either wholesale or retail. It's the demand to be satisfied. You order something from Amazon, you expect it the next day. The thing you've ordered may well be in the United States or in India. And without air support, fulfillment of the customer's wish can't be achieved. This is a major, major area of development. And the ability, as we're finding, to be able to say to interested parties, you know, we can design an airport with an eye to these new developments. We're not stuck with legacy from the past. We can put the parking stands where you want them, we can position the buildings where you want them, and we can begin to work on the IT systems that are going to be needed to provide a digital, paperless trail from the source to the ultimate destination. And that's an aspiration for many airports around the world. It is, in some respects, easier when you're starting from scratch, as we will be doing. All that work needs to happen. The chances are that we'll be partnering with a university somewhere, hopefully in this part of the UK, for that work to be done, because that's original work that no one else has done. And then Thursday and Friday, I can't give you the name, but we are going as a team over to Belgium to meet with a major contractor who may well be coming onto Manston, and we will be going to look at Liège Airport. I'm happy to mention the name, because there are parallels with them, and they have developed a number of very modern systems for the movement of air cargo efficiently and quietly, I should also add. And they're a similar sort of model because they have some passenger traffic as well, and we're interested to see how it is that they give the necessary priority to cargo, whilst at the same time securing the passenger base. So that's going to be an interesting day for us. So that's a kind of a typical week, really, in the life of myself and my colleagues. My two colleagues are coming over from the US, Niall and George. Niall, I can tell you, has managed to become a father for the third time in the last few days. So, if you see him and he's looking stressed and he's sleepless, you know why. That gives you a pretty good idea of what we're doing and what this is about. The other thing I wanted to say was this. You'll see that I've been fiddling with a report on the desk here and sharing it with your esteemed Member of Parliament. This is the final report by Dr. Dixon in relation to the airport and its economic potential. This one is entitled The Economic and Social Impacts of Airport Operations at Manston.
That means jobs.
Well, yes, but it also means contribution to the UK economy, gross value added, and all these other buzzwords. Very, very important indeed. The point I wanted to make, in contrast, I suppose, to one or two other reports you may have in mind, is that the work that we've commissioned and completed has been painstaking. I mean, Bo will tell you he's been wanting to know what's happened to this report for weeks. But we have been
tomorrow is the answer I always get, tomorrow.
The answer is, material like this, which underpins the DCO, has got to be right. You can't just rattle it off. It's got to be spot on. And I think, for me, this policy was vindicated in the planning appeal in March, when we presented Sally Dixon and Chris Kane as our experts to deal with the market demand for Manston and also the AVIA report. And such was the quality of their work, it was not challenged by the other side, at all, not challenged. You can only do that if you put the time in and you put the effort in, and we've done that. This is, I mean, if I can tell you now, the final delay on this was that there's an excellent report on the factors which persuade people to invest in a particular area, which had been done by a distinguished academic from, I think, Canterbury University. And there were some issues about the way in which his numbers were calibrated. We felt, or the advice we got was, we should just check how the calibration was done. So we actually contacted the academic in person and spoke to him and had it clarified. That's the level of detail that we're going to. And we think it's money well spent, and it will stand us in good stead in the coming months and weeks. Right, now in relation to the project itself, we will be entering a period of statutory consultation from the second week of June. We did not know that a general election was being planned, unlike Sir Roger and Craig. But fortunately, we chose a period which begins the week after the election. Otherwise, we would have had a real problem with rebooking venues and so on, because it's not considered the right thing to run a consultation alongside a general election campaign. So once the election's out of the way, you'll be into statutory consultation. So the excitement never stops in Senate, does it? That will go on for a period of 6 weeks. We will have events in the same locations as last time, with the exception of Canterbury, where we've chosen a more appropriate venue. We will also this time be having 2 breakfast events for the business community as well, because one of the odd gaps in the legislation is that there's an obligation to consult just about everybody and anybody, but there's no formal obligation to consult the business community, which we find very strange. So we are putting together 2 events with the assistance of the Chambers of Commerce, the Federation of Small Businesses and the IOD down here, and hopefully that will produce a lot of good response for us. The steps that we've been taking in relation to the statutory consultation began with the land referencing. Some of you will have followed some of the social media stuff about that. All I can say to you is land referencing is a statutory obligation on our part to inform householders, landowners, that an event is occurring, namely the potential development of the airport, which could have an impact on their land. That's the reason for that. The questionnaires themselves are prescribed by regulation. The firm who carried it out for us, Michelle, are the largest single firm who do this in the country. They do it for most DCOs. Everything they've done is statutorily compliant. And in fact, I'm told that we've had a much higher than average response rate to the land referencing, and of course the information will be used carefully and in the strictest confidence. And it's merely to inform people that something is going on, and there are people who still would not have been aware of what was being planned. That exercise is now just about finished, and it was concluded successfully. We had a parallel exercise which required us to test and inspect the drainage pipeline running down from the airport to Pegwell Bay. That was carried out with the full cooperation of landowners under whose land the pipeline runs, and I have to say with the cooperation of KCC and TDC, and the result is that the pipeline is in very good working order. No one has illegally tapped into it, there are no leaks, there's no damage. It is in very good working order, which is really good news for us. The next big event is going to be the publication of the preliminary environmental impact report, the PEIR so-called. This is a huge document which basically sets out the environmental implications of what we're going to do. That will be published just after the election, and it is a very weighty document containing all the information that we believe people are entitled to, including things like night noise and so on. All that's in there. That work is just about complete. And the job of writing that, as you can imagine, has involved lots of people, checking, rechecking, making sure it's all accurate. That's been going on behind the scenes, and you will see the fruits of that, hopefully, in the next, well, just after the election. As far as PR is concerned, we will be putting out the report that's sitting here, and I forgive me, I will just read from it, if I may. This is by Dr. Sally Dixon. This in itself is the result of 4 months of work. This report describes, I'm quoting from the executive summary. This report describes how the number of jobs created by airport operations at Manston has been forecast. Direct on-site jobs are predicted to be 2,150 by year 5, of which 697 posts are forecast to be created by the airport operator. In other words, of the 2,100, 697 will be in the direct employment of the airport. Others will be employed by people who are on the airport carrying out other operations. The direct employment figure will rise with increasing freight tonnage and passenger numbers, which are detailed in full in the report. By the end of year 5, the indirect and catalytic jobs, an indirect job is a cab driver or someone that provides food or catering or whatever. A catalytic job is a job which has been created because of the proximity of the airport, so that someone's setting up a business close to the airport because the airport is there. Those jobs are not on the airport. They're not really indirect jobs, they're classified as catalytic jobs. So by the end of year 5, the indirect and catalytic jobs forecast to result from the operation at Manston Airport are 4,515 and 8,601 respectively. So we're talking about a total jobs impact here, which is really significant. You know, it could be as much as 10,000 people by the end of year 5. But it's one thing to assert that, and you know, people have a habit of doing that kind of thing. It's quite another thing to say, read the rest of the report. It's spelled out in there in great detail as to how these numbers have been calculated. What's also in the report is a review of the condition of sanity in East Kent, and you will know that life expectancy is less here than it is in other parts of the UK or other parts of Kent, that unemployment is higher here, that aspirations for school leavers are lower here, all those things. We believe an airport with the mix of jobs that it offers, including the training that we want to promote, because it's in our interest to have trained people coming through, that it can be transformative for this economy. And for me, shining through this report, that's really the big message. The final thing really is just to say we've had a glitch again about site access, which you've probably read about. I'm confident that will be resolved quite quickly. I don't think it's necessary to say too much. We want to continue the site access on exactly the same basis as it was before. It went off without a hitch. It's being done by big agencies, big consultancies who do this work regularly. It's not intrusive, and it's not as though anything is going on at the airport that's being damaged or hurt by our presence on the airfield. So we're dealing with opponents whose aim in life seems to be to delay us if they can, and all we can do is work with that and work through it. And then just finally on the budget side of things, I've discussed this with my colleagues, and I think it is important to share this with you. We had this board meeting on Wednesday. Now I can tell you that I shall be reporting to my fellow directors on Wednesday that since we started the DCO part of this, not what went before and the money that was spent before, but since we started the DCO, expenditure to date is running at around £2.5 million. That's what's already been spent, committed and sunk into this project. Remaining expenditure to take it across the line, we're expecting to be about another £2 to £2.5 million. Whatever it takes is committed and will be spent. To give you a feel for it, and I'm happy to share this with you, some of you will have witnessed the planning appeal that we took part in March, which was important to us. We prepared for it thoroughly. We had 2 aviation experts giving evidence for us. We also had Angela Shembry from RPS, who's one of the country's leading planning experts, give evidence for us, as well as my colleague George Yerrell. We had a QC, a junior counsel, a second junior counsel, and 2 solicitors present. So, I mean, we supported the case to the maximum because it was so important to us. The total cost of that for us is around £320,000. Now that's a lot of money. But if you're committed to the project and you want to go with it and you feel that something like that makes a difference, you have to invest in it. And that's what we've done. And that won't change. Now, at the same time, the reason that we have board meetings, like any well-run business, is to report, to review, to make sure that we're within budget, to make sure that we're managing ourselves properly. So we will always be careful in what we spend. There are times, I know again, when some of our supporters... Spend. Yeah, I know. We're a prudently run project. We will be a prudently run business. We have prudent investors who want to make a good return from this, but who will do so in a prudent way. That's how we mean to carry on. That's why we have so much attention to detail. That's why we're so fussy about the quality and detail of our reports, and that's not going to change. So, I think the final prediction is to say we expect the application for the development consent order to be submitted to the Planning Inspectorate now towards the end of the 3rd quarter, maybe the beginning of the 4th quarter of this year, and that we will then get an acceptance for examination, as it's called, during the 4th quarter, sometime in the autumn. That means the final decision, which comes from the Secretary of State at the end of the examination period, is likely in the autumn of 2018. That's what we're looking at now. And to give you a final feel for it, we've said, I think I said this at the last meeting, assuming we get the order and access on that at that time, we will immediately start on a major capital programme. We're not going to try and do building works on the airport and run an airport. It makes no sense. We will equip it, we will spend on it, we will get it with 8 or 9 parking stands for cargo planes, with refurbished parking stands for passenger planes before it opens. So it's likely that it will open finally in a full state of preparation with much better infrastructure towards the middle of 2020. That's the forecast now.
And then a big party.
Everyone, well, we'll have a party when we get access, I think. And then we'll have a second party once...
Thank you very much, Tony.